Hey folks, it's Cody Stoffer with Playmakers Corner, here to tell you about Code Red Coaching. Competing in athletics means you've lifted the weights, you've watched film, and you've got the passion. Problem is, that's what everyone else in the state has done. Perfect your game by honing in on your mental performance with Code Red Coaching. Whether you are a team or an individual, Code Red Coaching has the tools to create mentally solid habits and set up you or your team for success. Find Code Red Coaching at coderedcoaching.com or call 720-979-1914 to learn more today. That's coderedcoaching.com or 720-979-1914 today. Now back to the show.
What's good, y'all? Coach V here, and I got your 2023 2A End of the Year Awards here from the Playmakers Corner podcast. I'm just going to go ahead and break down how these are going to work. So we have multiple different award categories here, and each of us here on the podcast have a single vote. So I have a vote, Cody has a vote, Gino and Gideon, they both have a vote. So that's 4 different people. And then on top of that, our friend Anthony Garcia from Mile High Prep Report, he has a vote for every single award category as well. So that makes it 5. And then lastly, you, the people who voted on Twitter /X, got to have a vote as well. And so the majority, whoever won the majority of that vote will get the fan vote. And so that'll be our 6th vote here on these awards here. Now, I will say this, in the case of any ties, the player with, or I guess the candidate with the most fan votes will be getting that tiebreaker and will be our award winner for this year. So just wanted to go ahead and make sure that we get that all figured out, squared away there, so that there is no confusion. But that's basically how our votes will go here. And obviously, whoever gets the majority of the votes or that fan vote will be our award winner for this 2023 Colorado high school football season. So there you go there. Without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into it. All right, so let's go ahead and start with 2A Newcomer of the Year. This award goes to the best freshman who started on varsity and played at least 7 or 8 games. That is our game minimum for these awards, by the way, 7 or 8. So there you go there. I believe it's actually 7. So boom, there you go. And yeah, so these go to all freshmen. Now, before we hop into it, let me go ahead and talk about the honorable mentions before speaking about the finalists. To start, Jackson Craig, quarterback out of Timnath, he was in consideration. He threw for 813 passing yards, 5 touchdowns to 7 picks in his first year starting. Nathaniel Thorne, the kicker from TCA, a school known for having great kickers. He went 37 of 39 on PATs, 1 of 3 on field goal attempts, but had 504 kickoff yards and 579 punt yards on the season. Max Kolzak, defensive end from Timnath. He was another guy we considered. He had 59 tackles, a tackle for loss, fumble recovery, a pass deflection. And then finally, Ethan Toombs, the lineman from Wellington. He had 47 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, and 6 hurries. So there you go there. Those are the guys that finished just outside, but were definitely in consideration here. Now, let's go ahead and get to the finalists to start out. Let's go with Ivan Hawkhalter, the linebacker out of Timnath. On the season, he had 86 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, a hurry, 4 forced fumbles, 4 fumble recoveries, 4 pass deflections, 4 interceptions, and one of those was a pick 6. Just to talk about some of his signature games, against University, he had a great game. 20 tackles, 10 solo, 10 assists, and a tackle for loss in that matchup. Also had a pass deflection there as well. He also got interceptions against Prospect Ridge Academy, Sterling, and Weld Central. He also had 12 tackles in that one. So very productive linebacker, somebody who's going to stick for the rest of his career, hopefully at Timnath, and help them continue to get better day by day, week by week. So there you go. That is Ivan Hawkhalter from Timnath. Moving on, let's go ahead and talk about Kaysen Pridemore, let's just say linebacker from Salida. He's listed at a couple different positions here, but linebacker is definitely where he made his push here and his case for Newcomer of the Year. But on the year, he had 112 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, a sack, a forced fumble, along with 10 rushing yards and 209 punt yards. Talking about some of his signature games so far this season. or well, I should say last season, in the regular season, that is. Against Bayfield, he had 16 tackles, 11 of those were solo. Against Coleridge, he had 10 solo tackles, 16 total. Against Rye, which was a big-time win for them, he had 12 total tackles, 17 total tackles and 12 of those solo. I mean, he has been very productive from his linebacker spot and should be a good piece for Salida moving forward. So there you go. Another freshman linebacker in the mix. Moving on here up north, back up north that is, we have Hunter Hirschfeld from Sterling. He plays multiple positions, running back and linebacker, just like these guys. And here are his stats from the season. He had 239 rushing yards, a rushing touchdown, and 12 receiving yards on offense. On defense, added on 68 tackles, a fumble recovery, and 82 kick return yards in the regular season. These are all regular season stats, by the way, in case you didn't know. Now, talking about some of the games where he had some pretty signature performances against Kent Denver and Weld Central, he had 10 total tackles each, 6 of those solo. Those were his career highs. Against University, he had 6 solo tackles and 7 total tackles. So there you go there. Talking about rushing stats here, against Weld Central, he had 64 yards and a touchdown. Wellington on only 5 carries had 54 yards. Against Yuma on only 7 carries had 52 yards. So definitely somebody for Sterling to use and work with moving forward, and should be a good piece of that offense and defense here in the future. And then last but not least, our last finalist here is tight end / wide receiver Jackson Barker out of Timnath as well. Timnath cranking out some great players here. A lot of his impact was felt on offense, where he had 374 receiving yards and 3 receiving touchdowns, along with 4 tackles on defense. Talking about some of his key games against the Academy, he had 5 receptions, 113 receiving yards, and a touchdown. Against Prospect Ridge Academy on 4 receptions, had 150 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns as he turned up and did his thing there. He also had 23 receptions on the year, so definitely getting a lot of usage from that Timnath offense. All right, now let's go ahead and get into the votes. Let me start with the Twitter vote here. Hunter Hirschfeld from Sterling won 49% of that Twitter vote, which is a lot. Winning that one by a pretty good margin there. So there you go. That's one vote. The fan vote for Sterling's Hunter Hirschfeld. Let's go to Cody and talk about his vote, but he is going with Kaysen Pridemore from Salida. He said about Kaysen here. Kaysen not only paced the Spartans in tackles at 124, but was top 10 in the state and 243rd in the country on legitimate tackling. I think he means solo tackling. From his film, he already has great instincts and flows well sideline to sideline, which makes his stats legitimate. He gives Salida a leader to build around defensively for the next 4 years, which is important to me when looking at Newcomer of the Year. So there you go there. That is one vote for Kaysen Pridemore, tied here at 1-1. The other one, obviously, for Hunter Hirschfeld. Moving on, let's go ahead and talk about Anthony Garcia and his vote. He is going with Ivan Hochhalter from Timnath. He said this Timnath team is starting to come together, and with playmakers like Hochhalter, they will get into the playoffs soon. So there you go there. Split 3 ways between Kaysen Pridemore, Ivan Hochhalter, and Hunter Hirschfeld. Let's go ahead and see what Gino has to say. He will be voting for Ivan Hochhalter. He says this is an absolute no-brainer for me. Hochhalter has 4 interceptions to go with 4 forced fumbles and 4 fumble recoveries, along with 87 tackles and 4 tackles for loss. I can't even imagine the type of numbers he's going to be putting up his senior year. Because 8 forced turnovers as a freshman is incredible. He had a 20 tackle game against University, and then he also said 2 forced fumbles against Brush and forced fumbles against Bertha and Arvada as well. He simply seems to dominate no matter who he has in front of him. So there you go there. That is 2 votes for Ivan Hochhalter and 1 vote each for Kaysen Pridemore and Hunter Hirschfeld. Now, Gideon, he is going to say this. He says, this is between Kaysen Pridemore and Ivan Hochhalter for me. While Pridemore's regular season tackle total has a national ranking next to it, Ivan was able to force 8 total turnovers for Timnath. Neither the Cubs or Spartans had the best season, but Salida blocked a few teams like Rye from making the playoffs. The thing is that Timnith is going to be deadly next year with all those pieces, and even with a stacked defense, Ivan put together an all-state caliber season. Hawkhalter has the 1% edge to me, but this is a decision I keep going back and forth on. Either way, the recipient is deserving. So there you go there. That is 3 votes for Ivan Hawkhalter. I will go ahead and also vote for Ivan Hawkhalter as well to make your 2023 2A Newcomer of the Year. Timnith's very own Ivan Hawkhalter, the linebacker. Look, 8 forced turnovers, that speaks a lot to me. Plus the tackles are pretty good too. Not over 100, but still very good. Look, Timnith is going to be really good moving forward. I think he's going to be one of those guys, along with all the other young guys there, that are going to contribute and make this program very good here in 2A. So I got to go with Ivan Hawkhalter from Timnith.
Obviously, you want a trainer who can make you stronger and faster with the work you put in, but what about a trainer who can help you rehab and recover like the pros? Look no further than Junkyard Training, that not only offers specific strength and speed training, but also offers a plethora of recovery and rehab techniques like cryo, cupping, recovery boots, and so much more. Learn more today by visiting junkyardtraining.net or call 303-521-7594. Once again, visit junkyardtraining.net or call 303-521-7594 and get started today.
All right, thank you, Cody, for our little ad read there. Let's keep this thing going and let's talk about Defensive Playmaker of the Year. This award goes to the best defensive player here in 2A Colorado High School football. Before we move on here, I want to talk about the honorable mentions because there were a lot of great honorable mentions here that were just outside. Starting with Cooper Nieder, the junior corner from Eden. He had 105 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 3 interceptions, and a fumble recovery. Then there's the cornerback Jaron Texer, a senior from TCA. He played cornerback, who had 4 interceptions, 8 pass deflections, 1 forced fumble, and 31 tackles. Then we have Ian Champ Hayfeet, the senior defensive end, I want to say, from Moffett County. Balling out for them still right now here in the playoffs, but he had 43 tackles, 14 tackles for loss, 10 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, a field goal block, and a safety here in the regular season. And then last but not least, we have a familiar name here, Kafui Fiadanu, the junior linebacker from Devlin. He had 109 tackles, 15 tackles for loss, 8 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, and a pass deflection. I say familiar because he was actually our Newcomer of the Year winner a couple years ago. So there you go there, but he's balling out for Devlin right now. Now, all these guys were just outside because we have a great list of players here and finalists who were really deserving and did their thing this season. Let's go ahead and talk about one of those players. That is Trip Skews, the sophomore defensive lineman from Kent Denver. In the regular season, had 117 tackles, 32 tackles for loss, a state high 22 sacks. Yes, you heard that right. 22 sacks. That is the most sacks since Marcus Howard from Aurora Central from 2 years ago, I want to say. So there you go there. And then he also has 13 hurries, a forced fumble, and 5 blocked punts to go along with that. Talking about some key games here against Highland, he had the second most tackles here. He had 18 but 10 solo tackles in that one. Also had 2 sacks there. Against Elizabeth, he had 15 total tackles, 10 tackles, solo tackles. He also added on 3 sacks and 5 hurries there. Against TCA, that was a game Cody and I went to for league. He had 11 total tackles, 7 tackles solo. He also had 2 sacks in that one. In fact, he has had a sack in all 9 games that he played so far this season, and he's only a sophomore. A big part of that Kent Denver team and why they were able to make it to the playoffs in the first place, back to the playoffs in a dominant form. So there you go there. That is Trip Skews from Kent Denver. Moving on here, we have another familiar face. We have Vince Hawkhalter from Timnith. I believe he was our Newcomer of the Year running last year. But on defense, he balled out at linebacker. He had 129 total tackles on the season, 5 tackles for loss or hurry, 2 forced fumbles and pass deflections. That also includes 72 solo tackles. Now, talking about key games against University, he had 16 solo tackles and 25 total tackles. Just the week before against Wellington, he had 9 solo tackles and 18 total tackles. I mean, he's killed it for this Timnath squad, who continues to develop and get better. He is a tackle machine for them out there in Timnath. Moving on, we have another defensive lineman, this time a senior from Rifle. That is Troy Mattia here on the regular season, because they are still going here during the playoffs at this moment when I'm recording this. But he had 8 sacks, 3 hurries, 43 total tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 2 fumble recoveries, and a safety during the regular season. Now, to talk about some key games here that he had here against Glenwood Springs, that was a big one that Cody went to, where they won 22-20. He had 6 solo tackles, 7 total, along with 2 sacks in that game. I believe he had 3 tackles for loss as well. Against Montezuma Cortez, he had 3 sacks against them too. And then against Brush, which I guess that's a playoff game, I'm just going to mention it real quick. He had 12 total tackles and 7 solo, 3 tackles for loss. So there you go. That's Troy Mattia, a big part of that Rifle team and a big reason why they are contenders so far this season. All right, and then our last finalist, last but definitely not least, it is the defensive end from Delta, senior Tucker Johnson. On the regular season, had 76 total tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, 13 hurries, 2 forced fumbles, and 3 fumble recoveries. Let's go ahead and talk about some key games here. Against Rifle, a dominant 28-7 win. He had 10 total tackles, 4 solo, 3 tackles for loss. Also had 2 sacks in that game. Against 3A Palisade, he had a sack and 11 total tackles, 4 solo in that one. And then I want to say this is Pagosa Springs. Yes, Pagosa Springs, who's a very good team. He had 10 total tackles, only 2 solo, but still turned up against them. So there you go. That is Tucker Johnson. Also, by the way, this last weekend, doesn't count because this is a regular season award, but just worth mentioning, this last weekend in the playoffs, he had the game-winning safety to go ahead and send Delta into the next round. So there you go there. Those are all of your finalists. Okay, now let's go ahead and get to the votes here. I'm going to start off with my vote, and I'm going to cast my vote for Trip Skews out of Kent Denver. Look, 22 sacks is insane. It's been a really long time since another player has hit 20 sacks. Well, a couple years at least, in all of Colorado, not just 2A, but all of Colorado. And so I got to give him a lot of credit. This is a kid who really impressed me live. He is a force to be reckoned with, and I love his game. I think he's someone who's going to be here in the coming years, but I feel like this regular season he really dominated, and so I have to vote for Trip here. Now, let's go ahead and go to Anthony Garcia and see who he's going to vote for. He is going to vote for Tucker Johnson out of Delta. He says, I know this is a regular season award, and it showed with his tackles for loss and tackles as an interior defensive lineman. Also was playing the quarterfinals for a safety. He's talking about that one that I just mentioned here. That was obviously huge for him. So he's going with Tucker Johnson. So there you go. It's 1 vote for Trip Skews and 1 vote for Tucker Johnson. Let's go to Gino's vote. He will be voting for Kent Denver's sophomore defensive lineman, Trip Skews. He said, very, very tough choice between Trip Skews and Tucker Johnson. I like Johnson's film quite a bit more, but Skews' film is nothing to slouch at either. You then combine with the fact that Skews put up 22 sacks, 32 tackles for loss, and over 100 tackles on the number 1 defense in the state. And yeah, I gotta give it to Skews. His pure size and strength is very impressive, and he is definitely going to continue to dominate and refine his technique over this offseason and into the next season. So there you go there. He's going with Trip Skews as well. Now, let's go to Gideon here. He says this, Trip Skews had 22 sacks in the regular season with 32 tackles for loss. I know that he is in the top 10 nationally. However, I'm going to make a controversial decision. I'm going to pick Tucker Johnson. Johnson is someone who cannot be denied, and the role he plays in this defense is immense. Not that Skews doesn't have a large impact, but the defense leadership that Johnson provides for the Delta team, the steadfast hand that guides, and the experience that provides a bar to meet, that is not something that Skews has yet, in all caps. Johnson knows what it takes to get to the top of the mountain, and he captained the second best defense in 2A. Next year or the year after, Skews will have that experience, but this year, Johnson is one of the top in the state for me. So there you go there. Tied at 2-2. 2 for Trip Skews, 2 for Tucker Johnson. I'm going to go ahead and read off Cody's vote here. He is going with Tucker Johnson. He says this: one of the awesome big guys up front for this race. No one plays sideline to sideline quite like Tucker Johnson, and I don't know if someone provides more opportunities for this team, for his teammates to make plays either. With the ability to routinely beat double teams, scrape across blocking schemes, put linemen in the QB/running back's lap, and spearhead this deadly Delta defense, gotta go with TJ here. So there you go there. That's 3 votes for Tucker Johnson, 2 for Trip Skews. Remember, the last vote here, if it comes down to a tie, will go to the player with the most fan votes here from Twitter/X. And so here we go. Your 2023 2A Defensive Playmaker of the Year is senior defensive end Tucker Johnson from Delta, as he won with 45% of the vote, a pretty good chunk there. So there you go there. That is your defensive playmaker of the year, Tucker Johnson, the senior out of Delta.
So do you want to know what the best kept secret in running back training is? It's Madskillz RB1 Training. Coach Voss is flipping the script and leveling up running back training in Colorado by implementing his proven, nationally recognized system of training. Don't be fooled by the name. Quarterbacks and receivers become fundamentally sound juke artists as well with his training. It's evident the athletes he trains love him. Each progressive training session arms the athlete with a new skill set that prepares them to be shifty, powerful, and elusive. Parents love Coach Voss because with his training, they receive free college recruiting tips, no contracts, and no drama. Message him on Instagram at Madskillz_RB1 Training or at Coach Cut Creator on Twitter, X, for more information. Off-season runs from January through July, so get in the cut and get some Madskillz this off-season.
Thank you, Cody. And speaking of Madskillz, these 2023 Offensive Playmaker of the Year finalists and honorable mentions definitely have them here in 2A as they lit it up on offense. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the guys who were just outside the honorable mentions, starting with sophomore wide receiver from Arvada, Jiraiya Ariano. This season, he followed up an incredible freshman year and had a great sophomore year where he had 828 receiving yards, 14 receiving touchdowns, also two kick return touchdowns as well. Speaking of sophomores, we also have another one in quarterback, Yanni Balafis from Kent, Denver. He had 1,704 passing yards, 19 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. Also added on 163 rushing yards to 2 rushing touchdowns there. He has been big time for Kent, Denver, and will continue to develop moving forward. And then last but not least, we have junior quarterback from Englewood, Carson Campbell, who had 1,709 passing yards, 21 touchdowns, 8 picks, and a pretty solid 114.3 QBR rating. All right, now with that being said, let's get to the finalists here, starting with senior running back Gavin Lindahl from Pagosa Springs, who had 1,214 rushing yards and 15 rushing touchdowns on the season. Let's talk about some of his big games here. Against Florence, even though it was a loss, a 35-32 loss, he ran for 240 yards and 4 touchdowns, going absolutely ballistic against them. Unfortunately, it was a loss, but the following week, he would bounce back in a 21-12 win over Alamosa, where he had 185 rushing yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns in that one. The greatness would continue as he had a lot of 100-yard rushing games here. Against Delta, he had 147 rushing yards. That is not an easy team to run against, as he was the engine there. Against Centauri, a good 1A team, he had 129 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns there. I mean, the only games where he didn't go for over 100 was where he went for 92 and a touchdown against La Junta. I think this is Kirtland Central here. They're like a New Mexico team. He didn't have to do much there. He only had 6 carries for 83 yards. And then against Bayfield, that was another blowout. He only had 42 yards in that one. But other than that, has been over 100 yards and has scored multiple touchdowns so far this season. And was a big part of why Pagosa Springs was able to make the run that they did. So there you go there. Speaking of running backs and senior ones at that, let's go ahead and talk about Berthoud's Alex Larson on the regular season had 1,267 rushing yards and 17 rushing touchdowns. Some of his key games came against, I want to say this is Forge Christian. Yep, Forge Christian. We had 172 yards and a touchdown against Eden, which, by the way, is in the semis right now. He had 240 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns against them. He had another 3 touchdown performance. I believe this is against Steamboat Springs here. Yep, that is them. And, I mean, he's just been killing it all season long as the engine for this Berthoud squad, and a big reason why they were able to make a big playoff push here. So there you go there. Moving on to a different position, and that is quarterback. We have senior quarterback Trevor Lucero from Arvada. This season, he lit it up. He had 2,313 passing yards, 22 touchdowns to 10 picks, while also adding on 543 rushing yards and 7 rushing touchdowns. Some key games against Littleton, he had 327 passing yards and 4 touchdowns. Also had 101 rushing yards and a touchdown in that one. As far as statistics go against Prospect Ridge Academy, he went 15 of 20 for 340 yards and 7 touchdowns. Also had 61 rushing yards there. And has just been really productive all season long, lighting it up. And despite not getting into the playoffs, got Arvada very close to the playoffs for the first time in a really long time, I feel. So shout out Trevor Lucero, the standout quarterback from Arvada. And then last but not least, we have our last finalist here, and that is Lucas Nuss, the athlete from Florence, I should say. He had 885 rushing yards and 15 rushing touchdowns, along with 206 receiving yards and 3 receiving touchdowns, and 2 kick return touchdowns, by the way, on the year in the regular season alone, as he really emerged as a big part of this Florence team. Against Woodland Park here, he had a very key game where he went for 191 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Also had a reception for 11 yards there. And then against Forge Christian, that's another team he had a big game against. He had 171 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns there. Add on 3 receptions for 22 yards. And so this is a guy who has been extremely productive for them, playing running back, wide receiver, doing it all. And there's a reason why he's an Offensive Playmaker of the Year finalist. So there you go there. Those are all of your finalists. Let's go ahead and get to the votes here. Starting with the Twitter vote, Alex Larson has 42%, which is the majority there. And so he will be the fan vote Offensive Playmaker of the Year as he receives that vote there. Anthony Garcia will go ahead and go with Alex Larson as well. He says, in my opinion, this is a 2-horse race between Lindahl and Larson. Both running backs played big roles in their team's success this season. Larson was being keyed by every team and still had over 1,000 rushing yards, and that's why he's getting my vote. So there you go there. That's 2 votes for Alex Larson. Moving on here, we have Gino, and he is going to vote for Gavin Lindahl. He said, another extremely tough decision here, as both Lindahl and Alex Larson have been the catalyst for each of their offenses. I'm going to give this one to Gavin Lindahl, though, because after seeing Pagosa's offense in person, there's just simply no way that Pagosa would have gotten a 10 seed and nearly beat Delta in week 6 without Lindahl being there at the helm. It's amazing that he put up nearly 1,500 yards in that offense, with most of his yardage coming after first contact, too. There is also the fact that Berthoud had 5 players with at least 25 carries and at least 7 yards per carry, so that tells me that they probably still would have been a playoff team without Larson. Not to take anything away from him, though. So there you go. That's 1 vote for Gavin Lindahl and 2 still for Alex Larson. Let's go to Gideon here. He says this one is either Gavin Lindahl or Alex Larson. Larson was on the better team, but I'm not sure that the Pirates are in a playoff spot, upsetting teams like Centauri without Lindahl. With Larson at the helm, Berthoud has reached their highest playoff seeding since the 2007-2008 season, while Lindahl has brought Pagosa to their highest win total since 2017. This is a really tough call, but I'm going to go with Lindahl here. Berthoud was already in a solid spot last year, and with Darren Davidson back on the team, their quarterback that is, they had a really good piece. I'm not fully sure that without Lindahl that Pagosa Springs is relevant. So there you go there. It is tied 2-2. 2 for Gavin Lindahl and 2 for Alex Larson. Cody will be voting for Gavin Lindahl. He says these Pagosa Pirates are one of the biggest surprises in the state, and Lindahl is one of the biggest reasons for that, having an astonishing 58% usage rate on this offense and being a consistent game no matter the quality of opponent. Their ability to control the clock in their defense fresh starts with a consistent run game and with over 200 touches in the regular season. And the cardio/strength to remain steady and reliable means the world. So there you go there. That is 3 votes for Gavin Lindahl and 2 for Alex Larson. Now, for me, I have the deciding one here because if I vote for Alex Larson, then obviously he has the fan vote there, and Alex Larson will be the offensive playmaker of the year. If I vote for Gavin Lindahl, then obviously majority wins. Gavin Lindahl will be the playmaker of the year. Now, both of these guys, to me, I mean, it really came down to both of these guys here. They've balled out all season. They have the numbers for it. They've had their signature games. But I think I'm going to have to go with Gavin Lindahl out of Pagosa Springs. Look, all the other guys said this already, but I am not sure how far Pagosa Springs could go without Gavin Lindahl. Now, obviously, Berthoud wouldn't be the same powerhouse without Alex Larson, but you still have your quarterback, Darren Davidson, who did win state in Wyoming. So that does go a long way. Having a guy like that, you could take a pretty good amount of the load here for Berthoud and, take some of that pressure off of him. And so I have to go with Gavin Lindahl, who is really all this Pagosa Springs offense had, I feel like, at the time. And so there you go there. Your 2023 2A Offensive Playmaker of the Year is Pagosa Springs senior running back Gavin Lindahl.
Allow me to introduce you to Move the Sticks Virtual Film Academy and Recruiting Services with Coach Wheat. Coach Wheat works through personable, one-on-one film sessions utilizing his experience as a high school, college, and professional football player to assess your level of play and help you develop into the next level player you are meant to be. With over 20 plus players on the next level, Coach Wheat's film sessions, college prospect assessments, recruiting consultations, and bundles will help prepare your prospect in a way that is both more personable and affordable than the competitors. Make it even more affordable using the promo code PMCO on MTSVFA.com. That is 15% off with promo code PMCO on MTSVFA.com. Visit the website or follow at MoveTheSticksVFA on Instagram or reach out to Coach Wheat at 561-961-8805 today. That's 561-961-8805.
All right, thank you, Cody, and all of our sponsors who have helped us out here. Just wanted to give them a quick shout out. Before we go to our final 2 award categories, the one that we are going to talk about here first is Most Valuable Playmaker. We only had 2 honorable mentions for this one. One was senior athlete Alex Padalino from Kent, Denver, who had 489 receiving yards and 6 receiving touchdowns. He also had 61 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 fumble recoveries, along with 7 interceptions. Yes, you heard that right. 7 interceptions and a pick 6. He was a big part of that Kent Denver team and a big part of why they are so successful this season. And then another senior I want to talk about as an honorable mention is Noah Johnston from Basalt, who had 533 passing yards, 11 passing touchdowns to 4 picks, but also had 24 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns, along with 58 tackles, a tackle for loss, and 3 fumble recoveries. All right, now let's get to the finalists here, starting with the junior quarterback from Delta, Ty Reed. On the regular season, had 1,315 passing yards, 17 passing touchdowns to 10 interceptions, along with 307 rushing yards and 11 rushing touchdowns, as he has led Delta as the 1 seed, I believe, or at least one of the top seeds here in the playoffs. So there you go there. Looking at some key games here against Rifle, we played really well against them. 186 passing yards and a passing touchdown. Also had 103 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns against them as he turns up there. Against Eagle Valley, he had 138 passing yards and 3 touchdowns, along with a rushing touchdown to add on there. Against Bayfield, had 189 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns, along with 29 rushing yards and a touchdown. I mean, it just goes on and on. He's been big time for this team since he's been a freshman, right? And last year he battled injuries. This year he bounced back, and there's a reason why they're in the semis right now. So there you go there. That's one of your MVP finalists, Ty Reed. Moving on here, we have a senior athlete, running back slash linebacker from Elizabeth. That's Cooper Connolly. On the regular season, had 861 rushing yards, 11 rushing touchdowns, and then on defense had 58 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, a sack, and a pick 6 here. I mean, all year long, he has been the engine for this team. On offense, if you need a yard, he will give you one. On defense, if you need a stop, he will give you one. That is Cooper Connolly. Let's talk about some of his key games here. Against the Academy, he had 181 yards and 3 touchdowns on offense. On defense, he had 9 tackles there. Against University, he was really good against as well. He had 69 total rushing yards, and then he added on another 9 tackles, 2 solo in that one. Against TCA in a big-time win, he had 10 total tackles, 5 solo there, as he has continued to be the engine for that Elizabeth team and was a big part of their success this season and in the last couple seasons, to be frank. So there you go there. That is Cooper Connolly, the running back slash linebacker out of Elizabeth. Moving on here, we have Logan Gross, the quarterback slash safety from Rifle. On the year at quarterback, he had 1,286 passing yards, 13 touchdowns to 6 picks, but had 863 rushing yards and 12 rushing touchdowns. On defense, or sorry, I should mention this on offense, or I guess this is more special teams. He had 2 kick return touchdowns, so there you go. Now on defense, he had 32 tackles, 5 pass deflections, and 5 interceptions, which is a lot for Logan Gross there. So there you go there. Some key games here against Glenwood Springs. He had 283 passing yards, a touchdown and a pick, but also added on 107 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns in a big-time game against a playoff team in 3A. Talking about some defensive performances here. Against Brush, he had an interception. Against Delta, he had an interception in both those games. He had over 5 tackles, or at least 5 tackles. Against Brush, he had 5. Delta, he had 6 solo ones, so there you go there. He's been really active on both sides of the ball, and he's a huge reason why Rifle has been so dominant this season and is so far, or as of right now, in the semifinals this season. And then last but not least, we have our youngest, most valuable playmaker, at least in this group here for 2A. That is sophomore quarterback slash defensive end, Tanner Gray of Wellington. On the year, had 347 passing yards, 6 touchdowns to 2 picks, but had 1,060 rushing yards and 17 rushing touchdowns. On defense, he had 30 tackles, 14 tackles for loss, and 2 sacks. Let's go ahead and talk about some key games for him here. Let's go ahead and look at his game against Timnath, where he had 210 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns in a big-time dub there. Against Highland, he had 159 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Also had 51 passing yards and 2 touchdowns in that one, as he was the engine for this team in that game there. Against Devlin, he had 152 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns there. Only threw 1 pass, which was incomplete, as he has found a way to get it done on the ground. Also contributing on defense here. Against Devlin, against Platte Valley, he had 5 total tackles, 3 solo there. When they played Estes Park in an 8-6 to win, he had a sack along with 5 tackles in that game. Against Platte Valley, he had a sack as well to go with another 5 tackles. So there you go there. That is Tanner Gray, the 2-way athlete who has just been killing it on both sides of the ball for Wellington and has a very bright future ahead of him. All right, now let's go ahead and get to the votes here, starting with the Twitter vote. Ty Reed wins this one by 43% here. So there you go, the senior quarterback from Delta getting some love and getting the fan vote for most valuable playmaker. So there you go, that's 1 vote for him. Anthony Garcia of Mile High Prep Report, he is going to go with Logan Gross, the senior quarterback slash athlete from Rifle. He says this: I think this is between Gross and Reed. Both teams are their main offensive weapons, but I think Gross had to carry more of the load this season. I don't think there's a wrong pick with either, but Gross is my pick for regular season success. So there you go there. Moving on here, let's go to Cody. He is going to go with Ty Reed. He said these Panthers feel virtually unstoppable, and Reed plays like the best player in the state on the best team in the state. He's a versatile offensive weapon who can beat you in so many ways it's nauseating trying to guess how well he will do it. Once in the red zone, the Panthers are very effective, and Ty feels like everything to do with that. And he's doing all this as a junior while looking like one of the best prospects at any position, in 2A. So there you go. That's 2 votes for Ty Reed, 1 for Logan Gross. Gideon will go ahead and vote for senior quarterback Logan Gross from Rifle. He said, I love Tanner Gray for this as well, but Gross is hard to deny. He was one of the top 2-way players in the state, and Rifle's offense lived and died with Gross. Gross was the leader of Rifle's secondary, and the Bears both played against and won against the better teams than Wellington. Sorry, let me say that again. And the Bears both played against and won against better teams than Wellington. This is an extremely slight win for Gross, but Gray is also a respectable choice. I will say that for Gray, they would not have won against Estes Park without him, that's for sure. And potentially not Timnath either. So, boom, that is another vote for Logan Gross. That's 2 for Logan Gross, 2 for Ty Reed. Gino will vote for Logan Gross here. He says Logan Gross was a maniac on both offense and defense this year. Over 1,200 rushing yards, over 1,400 passing yards, 33 total touchdowns, plus a ridiculous 6 interceptions on defense. He's also been in the Playmaker of the Week conversation every week, it seems like. So my vote is for Logan Gross here. And so that once again brings my vote down to the deciding one, because I am also picking between Ty Reed and Logan Gross. Ty Reed is someone I actually got to watch in person against TCA in the playoff game, but if we are just going off of regular season success, I'm gonna have to go with Rifle senior quarterback Logan Gross. I mean, look, he did it on both sides of the ball, contributing a whole ton of touchdowns there, just absolutely killing it. 20 plus touchdowns along with 5 interceptions there on defense. I mean, he's a big impact on both sides of the ball here, especially on defense. And, you know, you got to respect that. I love that for Logan Gross here. And there is a reason why they're in the semis, looking to potentially go to state here. So we'll have to see about that. But your 2023 2A most valuable playmaker goes to the senior athlete from Rifle, their quarterback / safety, Logan Gross. All right, last but not least, let's get to 2A Coach of the Year. This is actually a new award that we are implementing this year, so whoever wins it will be the first ever PMC 2A Coach of the Year. But, you know, we really want to go ahead and give a lot of credit to these coaches who have helped out these boys, dedicated a lot of time, and recognize these great guys who have helped out these programs and, you know, moved forward Colorado football. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about all the honorable mentions first, starting with Jason Robinson from Timnath. They went 2-7, but he got the first ones in program history, so that's obviously big. Then there's Nathan Morales from Pagosa Springs. He went 5-3. Had their first winning season since COVID, though, which is absolutely huge, and, you know, obviously got pretty far in the playoffs here, not doing too bad in the quarterfinals. Then you have Carl Freirix, I want to say, from Basalt. Excuse me if I'm saying that wrong. But Basalt, you know, this was kind of supposed to be a down season for them. Instead, they went 7-2 and had the number 7 offense, despite graduating so many of those pieces last year on that side of the ball. So a lot of credit to him from Basalt. Then we have Drew Sisson from La Junta. They went 8-1, had the number 9 offense and number 5 defense. He finished just outside consideration. And then we had Ty Leba from Rifle. First off, he's a first-year coach, which is insane. So we definitely expect for him to be on this list more in the coming years. But in his first year, Rifle went 7-1. Number 3 on offense, number 7 on defense. And so he is definitely a guy that just finished outside here for us. So there you go there. Those are your honorable mentions. Let's go ahead and get into the finalists here, starting with Coach Travis Peoples from Wellington. His Wellington Eagles went 9-0 in their second season as a program, by the way. They had the number 4 offense in 2A and number 6 defense in 2A. So there you go there. And also made the playoffs, I believe, which is absolutely huge for them. So you gotta love that. Travis Peoples from Wellington getting some love there. And then we have Riley Newcomer, the head coach from Kent Denver. They went 9-0 this season in the regular season, that is, and had their best record since 2018, had the number one offense and the number one defense a year after struggling a little bit there. And so very dominant for Riley Newcomer. This is another guy that we hope to see more in these conversations here in the next couple of years, as he's really done wonders for this program. Then we also have Corey Tickner, the Berthoud head coach. He went 9-0. His Spartans went 9-0 and had the number 2 offense and number 3 defense in the entire state. You know, this is a team that really lived up to its potential this season, and so you got to give him a lot of credit there for that. And then last, but definitely not least, is Delta's head coach, Ben Johnson. You know, 1 year removed, right, from going to the state finals last year in the state championship. This year they continue to roll, as in the regular season went 9-0. This is their second straight year as a top 2 seed, with the number 5 offense and the number 2 defense here in 2A doing their thing, and currently are in the semifinals. Now let's go ahead and get to the votes here, starting with Anthony Garcia. He is going to go with Ben Johnson from Delta. He said, year after year, he has made this Delta team competitive. I think any of the 4 coaches deserve it, as all had big seasons and great success. So there you go there. Anthony Garcia going with Ben Johnson from Delta. Let's go ahead and get to Gideon's vote here. He is going with Travis Peoples. He said it was between Travis Peoples and Corey Tickner for me, but the difference is what they had. Tickner did have an undefeated season with a better strength of schedule. However, Peoples took a second-year program to the playoffs while winning league and remaining undefeated with multiple high-impact players, not just Cash Alchvager, missing large parts of the season. The Berthoud/Wellington game is going to be a lot of fun next year, and I will be there. But due to the circumstances surrounding it all, my vote is going to Travis Peoples. So there you go. 1 vote for Travis Peoples of Wellington and 1 vote for Ben Johnson of Delta. Let's see who Gino's going to vote for. He says this: Kent Denver used to be a perennial league champ and state contender back in the Scott Yates days in the 2010s, but they have had only 1 winning season since 2019 coming into this year. In only his second season as a head coach for Kent Denver, Riley Newcomer has led the Sun Devils from 3-6 last year to the number 1 defense and number 1 scoring offense and a 9-0 regular season record this year. He has shown that he knows how to utilize his playmakers to the max of their ability, so Riley Newcomer gets my vote for Coach of the Year. So there you have it, tied 3 ways between Kent Denver's head coach, Riley Newcomer, Ben Johnson of Delta, and Travis Peoples of Wellington. Let's see what Cody's going to say here. He is going to go with Travis Peoples. He said from basement dweller and second to last in the league to league champs and an undefeated regular season. The Eagles made one of the best turnarounds of any classifications, all while being a second-year program and missing important players for spots throughout the season. Wellington has quickly established themselves as a must-watch program heading forward, as they are primed to challenge themselves more and more while making headway with phenomenal playmakers and prospects. So there you go there. That is 2 votes for Travis Peoples. I'm going to go ahead and announce my vote here. I am going to go with Riley Newcomer from Kent Denver. Look, number 1 defense and number 1 scoring offense is absolutely insane. Plus, for them to go undefeated in that league with TCA, Elizabeth, even Englewood as well. I didn't mean it in a disrespectful way, but Englewood as well, you know, who's a good team. That's tough, right? That's definitely tough. And so I got to give a lot of credit to Riley Newcomer here. He has a young program, and a lot of these players are going to be back next year along with him, I assume. And so I'm excited for their future. And so I got to go ahead and vote for Riley Newcomer, who is turning a page for Kent Denver and reestablishing them as a powerhouse. So there you have it right there. 2 votes for Riley Newcomer, 2 votes for Travis Peoples, and 1 for Ben Johnson. Let's go ahead and go to the Twitter vote here, which will decide who is your 2023 2A Coach of the Year. And the people have decided that it is the Wellington head football coach, Travis Peoples, who will be your 2A Playmakers Corner Coach of the Year. And so congratulations to Coach Travis Peoples. He's done a great job with this program, and a lot is expected of him and his squad moving forward. Once again, thank you so much for everyone who voted on our polls on Twitter/X. And shout out to Anthony Garcia of Mile High Prep Report. He has done an excellent job covering small town sports and does it year round, covering a variety of sports, pretty much all of them, I'm pretty sure. So there you go there. Make sure you check out his website. He will also be at the 1A and 2A state championships as well as us. So, feel free to say hi to us there. And, just thank you to all our supporters who have supported us all season long. Looking forward to cover the rest of the playoffs here, and it should be a good deal. Now, before I sign off, do want to mention our all Playmaker teams. Those should be on all of our social media, so go ahead and check that out. I'm not going to explain the reasons why we picked them, but the way we picked them was that myself, Cody, Gideon, and Gino, we all got on a call, and we talked about all the players that we felt like deserved to be in those spots. It's kind of like an all-state team, but, we decided, and we pretty much have to agree on each and every single player before we move on, or at least the majority has to. So there you go there. It was pretty hard, a lot of close decisions there, but we feel good about that all PMC team. So make sure you check that out. Check out our all Playmakers team there for the 2A level and the 1A level in case you haven't. But until then, you'll hear from me next week.